Son d'un papel!
Oh, my wiener.
In a round of all rounds of asking questions, this is Ask Akasan, the segment where, of course, you can ask me questions, because that's my name. Alright, so this one is coming from Her Partey. Her Partey, and this was actually, it's a follow-up question to the original Ask Akasan video that I put up over a year ago, and it was like part 2. I completely forgot about it, but he remembered, which is amazing. Thank you, Herb. Here we go. I have a question about the class you teach. About a year ago on the last Ask Akasan, you said that your student and the class you teach can be a video all to itself. I would like to know more about that. By the way, do you teach middle school, high school, or elementary school? Okay. So, let's show that clip real quick. Boom. Okay, this one comes from Evolution Kakume. Tell us about your students, how your students perceive you or interact with you. That could be a whole nother segment, but in short, they like me, I love them. Some of them love me, some of them hate me. That's that. I'll have to get into that one in a whole nother, that could be a whole nother segment, but alright, so basically the question was like, how do my students perceive me? And at that time I was actually working at another place a whole year ago, obviously, as you saw from the old apartment. Now, and what I've noticed now compared to where I was working, where I'm working now, is a lot of it actually depends on the perception that the company is illuminating off to the consumer, okay? The company you're working at, the way they're set up, where you're living, sometimes even the income of the students and or the consumer, of the parent, basically, the family. And at that time, I was working in the country area. I was actually working at both companies. So I was working at one place in the country, and very, you know, like the toilet of the company I was working at, like there was no flushing. It was just like a porta potty thing. It was, man, it was crazy. I mean, this was a real deal country type stuff, man. Like mosquitoes everywhere, spiders as big as your hand, and all that. All right, but then that was on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Okay, but then on Tuesday and Wednesday, I would be working in the richest area of Fukuoka, basically, Momochihama, where the Fukuoka Tower is. Very beautiful, looks like the never-ending story, right? And this building, you know, had its own washlet. I don't know why I'm focused on bathrooms so much, but, you know, it has a spray that goes up your butt, and there's hotels everywhere. It's a beautiful service, you know, people bowing and all that. Damn! And so, basically, I had a different type of, my students treated me very differently, mainly not just because of that, but also because of the fact that the place in the country, I was the only teacher. I was the only, so if you came to that English school, you were just talking with Isaac. That was it. You were if you signed up, you were signing up for me. That was basically it. So, you know, maybe I got a little more love at that school because, you know, they really didn't have a choice. They could have gone somewhere else, but if they were coming to be with me, or if they were coming for that school, they were basically coming for to learn English from me. Okay. Then at this other place, you know, this is a staff of like 7 foreign teachers. Okay, with maybe around 5 or 6 Japanese assistants and such, Japanese staff. So, you know, what I've noticed is like a lot of the students will come and like all of them pretty much are really cool with me, but you know, they also, it was kind of like they had their pick, because especially because some of these kids could afford to come not just once a week like my older job, where you're coming once a week. A lot of them would come like twice a week or 3 times a week. Or if they came on Saturday, they would go to my class, and then they go to a different type of class, then they go to reading writing class. So, you know, it goes back into the parents could kind of afford to have them all different types of just, not just conversational, but also reading, writing. And then after that, they have their daily practice of just repeating phrases and such. So they could kind of choose. And, you know, some of these kids would favor me, or they would favor another teacher. Like one of my favorite students, just like a couple weeks ago, because all these kids here in the city, their English is very fluent, very, very well. So they can really express how they feel. And one of the kids was like, what is this girl? With no fear, she just said, you know, she's like, I like you, but I like this other teacher. I like this other teacher more because you're a little crazy. So, like, then the mom got mad at her and kind of like slapped her, not hard, but just kind of brush slapped her, like she was just like, da da da. He's your teacher, like you can't say that stuff. But you know, I was cool with it because because what I do for at that particular job, the way she sees me is that way, because that's kind of what I'm there for her age, very first grader. So you know, we're a very young kid. So I am the more entertaining, kind of wild dance teacher, basically. So yeah. So it, you know, that's kind of how they perceive me, is just kind of with the attitude, like so the younger the kids are, the nicer I am. So the more that they kind of like me and they want to play and they just kind of see a play friend or whatever. But then the older they get, the more I get like my grandfather, who was like a real hard ass sometimes, and just real strict. You know, you could tell he cared, but he never really showed it. Very emotionless in that department. Kind of cracking jokes or whatever, but very strict. And so when I get into like my older elementary kids, I'm very hard on them and very strict, and yelling at them and like really making sure that they're reading correctly and not taking shortcuts, because a lot of them, the older they get, they don't care about being there. They're just there because the parents are paying for it. So you know, this cynicness and this is you know, teen angst stuff annoys me also. But I'm very strict with them. And then you know, even older after that, I don't teach. One of the questions what's his name asked me was, or Herb, you asked if I teach, Herb asked me if I was teaching, not Herb, if he asked me if I was teaching middle school or elementary, high school, and actually last year at the place in the country, they had 2 different locations, but I had a lot more private students, which were high school and adults, and middle school girls, and that was that was fun. And I think that's really what I was going to get into last year, because at that time I was teaching them, and you know, it's weird, like males don't really last that long after elementary school. They generally quit and move on to do other sort of sports, like basketball or whatever. So boys find out, but girls tend to stick with it because it's a nice little hobby for them. And all my middle school people, or all my middle school students, were basically that age. Nowadays, I don't think I have them at all, actually, middle school or high school now, because they generally have been around for so long that they're still with the teachers that have been living here for a long time. So they basically kind of just become their private students, unless there's a specific request for like me or something like that. So I have a few private students like that, but they're from Korea or something like that. And very fluent, and that's kind of unique. But at that time, in Rising Gaijin, another kind of YouTuber, but yeah, YouTuber. He might be able to talk more about this because he teaches like middle school girls. I'm thinking like an all-girls class or something like that. But it's very interesting because at that time I was teaching a lot of middle school girls and a lot of high school girls, and you're just always like the entire time, because you're asking how they perceive me. They would love me. Some of them really loved me. Some of them actually were so like in love with me that they kind of hated me. And that was really hard to deal with because you're trying to be a teacher to them and not really a friend. But they would just do these things to like really, because they liked you and they wanted your attention, and they would like one of my coworkers, our best friend actually, he lived in when he was first starting out and he couldn't speak any English. Any Japanese, and he would be carrying his Japanese English textbook to the students would caught a hold of it. They kind of really, because every time they would say something, he'd be trying to look up a word. Like the students decided to fuck with him one day, and they hid his dictionary. And he would start panicking, like, "Oh, where the fuck is it? Oh, god damn it!" And the kids were just laughing their asses off. So, but nah, it's kind of interesting that, with the middle school and high school girls, especially with my middle school kids, very similar, just teaching like AKB48 or something, or HKT48. Like these girls. Like we kind of had we kind of liked the same sort of thing, and I had like a basic sort of like, they like Disney stuff, and there was this one girl I used to teach who was training to be like a singer and everything, and she was really into Disney, so she always wanted to ask me about Justin Bieber and things like that, so it was cool for me, and that made me kind of a very loving and lovable teacher for these people, because for these kids, because it was very rare that they had a chance to be taught by someone who was very open to their world, their own world. Like I was very familiar with the J-pop and the damn it, second time today, J-pop and all that other stuff. So they really liked it, and they would come in all the time and be like, "Oh my god, like, did you see Justin Bieber got arrested?" And I'm like, "Yeah, oh my god, for sure." So, that was real fun. And then the high school one was always hard because sometimes I would just morph into like the concerned parent, Gendo Ikari or something. Like I would just always be having the lesson like this, because they would be telling me about certain boys they were dating, and like they went to the club, or like, and such, and like asking me for relationship advice, and I'd just be like, okay. So that was a little hard, especially when they turned like 18, and then like 19. I had these two 19-year-old girls, and actually one of them had the same birthday I do, still does, but that was very hard because it was very interesting to see them going from like this little girl that I knew into like a full-fledged young woman, like an adult wearing a suit and a tie, going for entrance exams and job interviews. It was crazy. Yeah. So, I mean, sorry, I think I got a little off track there, but that's basically the main thing I want to talk about. A whole year ago was, it all kind of depends, and if someone really wants me to go more into depth about teaching, I don't do English teaching so often in terms of like most of the time I spend here in Japan, but I guess I could really dive more into English, like, when I went to Tokyo a while back, there's a guy who works in the government, and he wants to get into English teaching, but all of his friends around him have told him the horrors of English teaching, And I also have seen with other YouTubers I was researching, and like the YouTubers, like almost every foreigner that, like, not every foreigner, but so many foreigners out there that come out here, they start talking about how bad English teaching is. And I always felt like I should make like a response video, kind of a response video to something like that. If you're interested in that, let me know. Ask me some questions, okay? Let's close it up at that, okay? Herb, I appreciate it. Thank you for following up on that question. And I don't like loose ends, but I do like loose women. If you have any other questions you want to ask me below, do it in the comments there. And keep asking Akasan.